Welcome back to Currently Right Now, Wife, Mom, Me. This is your host, Ariane Mayweather, and let's just dive on into part two of this in-law situation. Did my son marry a villain? This lady's my villain, right? No, she's your daughter-in-law. She comes off as a stark raving bitch, but she loves your son, apparently. Nah, I'm just joking. I'm not, but I am. Um, I started it off that way because I think when we don't like someone, and I'm not a mother-in-law yet. I have all girls. I don't have any sons. So for me, I will be encountering the young gentleman that will be coming into my home, will be embraced with love, and I will be a mother-in-law, and I will finally get a son. And I'm so excited about that because, as you know, girls are cray-cray, and it just is what it is. We are. Our hormones from the time we are 10, 11 to the time we hit our 60s, all over the place. Anywho, back to what matters. I will be a mother-in-law. I won't experience what a mother-in-law of a son embracing a daughter-in-law comes in, but I am a daughter-in-law. And immediately when dating my husband and wanting to get to know his mom, so when I first met her, now here's a little background. My husband hadn't said anything about me to his mother. And I remember one Thanksgiving prior to me meeting her, I asked him, I said, have you told your mom about me? And he was like, no, not yet. And I was like, what are you waiting on? And he was like, I'll talk to her. And I'm just like, okay. So the impression I had was, if he's waiting to tell his mother about me, it's something ain't right. Like, either I got to worry about her, or whatever it is he perceives me as, she's not going to like me. So get on this plane in June, and he flies me out to meet his mom in Tejas. Now, what I'm not clear on, and I probably was told this, but I wasn't sure if he called her ahead of time when he was coming and said, hey, I have a girlfriend. I'm bringing her out to meet you. I'm not sure. But I did come with a gift. I asked him, I said, can you ask your mother if what her favorite jewelry is? And he responded with, oh, she likes jade. So I found a jade piece of jewelry that I thought she would like, just a peace offering. I truly believe upon meeting someone new, for instance, in that regard, a mother-in-law, father-in-law, whatever the case is, you're going into someone's home, you bring a peace offering. It helps set the tone. So we get there, we get to his childhood home that he was raised in, and I'm all about it because I'm with the feels, and I'm like, I'm gonna marry this man, and I think I'm great. I hope she thinks I'm great, and get up in there. And at this point, my husband he had retired, so he has a full-on beard. And so she comes in, we were sitting in the family room, and she comes down the hall, and she's like, well, hey there, retired army man with a beard. Look at that face. So she embraces her son, and my mother-in-law refers to my husband as Fave's son. He's her only son, so of course he's her favorite. And at this time I'm sitting there, and I'm nervous, and I'm looking at this woman, and very much so. Now, let's do this for context, because I had already found out who his mama was in the first 2 months of him and I meeting. And his mother's an author. She is a beautiful writer, and she had wrote several books. So he was sharing with me. He was like, yeah, my mom's an author. I'm like, oh, do you have a book? He's like, yeah. So I'm looking at the book. I find her name. I'm like, boom, got it. Immediately on Facebook. I'm stalking, I'm searching. I know your auntie, your grand cousins, everybody with the same last name. I'm looking at this lady's pictures. I'm looking at his kids' pictures. I am certifiably ultra nosy at this point, because I want to know. I want to get an idea of who is the individual that raised him, and because that is going to set the tone for our relationship. Granted, in this situation, in the beginning, he was very kind, still is very kind and sweet to me. So I wasn't really worried about that, but I needed to get eyes on the woman who raised my husband. So, I'm sitting there, and my mother-in-law is a for real on Southern Belle from Texas, and she's got this long drawn out accent, and she carries herself very much of a Southern belle. She's got manners. She is just whatever you envision of Southern folk, and every region of the South is different. Everybody from Texas behaves differently from the folks in Louisiana. Everybody in Louisiana acts differently from Mississippi to Alabama to Georgia. If you are in the South, and if you visited more than one state in the South, you know that. And everybody's dialect of the Southern drawl is quite different. And my husband's Southern drawl, from him traveling all over the world, is a little bit different, but every now and again that dirty South comes in, and it is I always tease him. I'm like, what'd you say? But anyways, back on track. So, she embraces her son, and he's like, Mom, I want you to meet Ariane. And she's like, well, hi there. So I get up, I hug her, and she's like, it's so nice to meet you. And she was like, I do remember her saying, Fave's son hasn't really said much about you. And I'm like, I know. Here's the gift. So I give her a gift. She's like, oh my goodness, I got you something too. So she hands me this gift of perfume, and, I'm thanking her. She opens her gift, and she's like, this is so sweet. How did you know Jade was my favorite? And I said, I asked, Fave's son, and he told me. I guess he asked you. And she was like, this is very thoughtful of you. Thank you. I said, of course. So we're sitting there, and we are getting ready to go to lunch. So we're in Texas. There was a place she wanted to go to. It was closed down. We get to, I can't remember the name of the place, but it's one of those you pay, and it's like a buffet type of deal. This is like my first time ever going to one of those. We have one here in California. I don't know the name of it. You know what? It's probably best I don't shout it out. It wasn't my jam, because he asked her, would you prefer this or Applebee's? And I'm in the back seat with my fingers crossed, praying it's Applebee's. Now, let me say this to you. We've all seen a video or a skit of a mother-in-law getting in her son's car, and she goes to the front side, the passenger seat, sitting in the front. And her and the daughter-in-law have conflict. And the daughter-in-law was like, you get in the back. And she's like, why would I get in the back? This is my son's car. And she was like, but I'm his wife. So they're bickering over the front seat of it all. And I am very much I don't have an ego like that. I think that's an ego thing of someone feeling that they're more important, than what they really are. It's a fucking car. It's not that deep. So I know when we first got to the car, I remember she said, I said to her, would you like to sit in the front? And she was like, oh, no, you sit in the front. But I feel like she sat in the front. Anywho, if she wanted to sit in the front, or if she would have walked to the front of the car and went to the front, I wouldn't have cared. It's a car. I don't need to ride shotgun. I notice my girls do that. All my kids, they fight over the front seat, which I've never been that person. I don't care about sitting in the front seat, but I notice that's a thing, and that's a skit, and that plays into the whole who's first in your life if you're married. Is it your mom or your wife? And just to touch on that, and I'll get back to the story of getting to know my mother-in-law. I am very God-fearing. I believe in proper order. God, husband, wife, kids. That's just the way it is for me. There's not black and white for me there. So I've been asked the question, and I think we've all seen this question floating around on social media. Who comes first? Mother or the daughter-in-law? Who comes first in that person's life? Do you fix your mother-in-law a plate, or does she sit down? Where does everybody range? And this is how I see things. So I'm going to take a quote out of the book of Genesis in the Holy Bible, King James Version, because I'm a King James Version gal. This is Genesis 2:21. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh instead thereof. And the rib, which the Lord God had taken from man, made he a woman, and brought her unto the man. And Adam said, This is now bone of my bones, and flesh of my flesh. Shall she be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. That right there says it all. You cleave unto your wife, it is what it is. We're one. No one, not even our children, should be able to penetrate our relationship. The moment you get married, you are one, which is why I don't understand when people don't believe in God, why they get married. That doesn't make sense to me. There's no covenant. If you don't believe in God, why would you even be in covenant with another person? Just live together and sin and do your thug thizzle. It is what it is. But anywho, that's besides the point. So when we talk about this whole who sits in the front seat, who should a man put above, who's first, his mom or his wife should always come first as a wife. Her husband should always come first. And this does not mean that your family prior to you getting married is obsolete. That's not what this is. This is my wife, my husband is my family. Outside of parents, outside of siblings, outside of kids, this is my family if done properly in the correct order. I mean, listen, I have a new modern family. It is what it is. I had kids before I got married, my first marriage. I'm not bashing or shaming that. It is what it is. It happens. We're humans. It shouldn't happen. I have a saying in my household, rest in peace to Kevin Samuels, you marry before you carry. And that's how we're doing that here. That's for my daughters because, listen, I've bumped my head enough to know that when you do things out of alignment, that is what gets you fucked up. So back to this. No, my husband's mother does not come before me. My mother doesn't come before my husband. We are first. And you know why? Because there are things I could do to my husband that his mom can't do. And there are things my husband can do to me that my mother and my father's passed away, can't do. And that's just the realest conversation it is. Because when there are dark nights and my husband is on his purpose and he is going through something, I'm his comforter. Me. My husband is my comforter, not my mother. I'm grown. And my husband's grown, and we lean on one another. And my praying life to God for my husband is what is going to get us through, and vice versa. That is why your mother doesn't come before me. That is why my mother doesn't come before him. And anyone listening to this, if you've at any point in time placed your mother or your father or mother, etc., above your spouse, shame on you. Because what you've done in that situation is taken this individual who you're married to and made them feel second best when they should feel number one. I'm not talking about silly shit like who sits in the front seat of the car. It's a car. It is not that deep. It really isn't. If your mother-in-law, father-in-law, whatever wants to sit in the front seat of the car, let them. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And if you feel a way about that and that's your jam and you care about that, have a conversation with your spouse and tell them, hey, when we're driving our parents around, I sit shotgun. They sit in the back. They are our kids. That's how that goes. And that's that, if that's your jam. But on the level or scale of things that are important, it is so minute. But whatever. People find things to bitch and complain about all the time. We won't let it be that. Anyways, back to my mother-in-law and me meeting her. Sorry I went on a rant. It is what it is. So we sit down at this eatery. And everybody gets their food. I think I ate something like mashed potatoes and gravy. It was something so simple. So me and my husband were boyfriend and girlfriend at the time. This sounds so weird to say when you're in your 40s, but whatever. We're sitting next to each other and she's sitting across from me. They're making light conversation. I'm nervous. When I am nervous, I overtalk. I talk really fast. So I was trying to breathe and keep calm. So she's sitting across and she goes, so how did you two meet? Now, that right there should tell you, like I said before, he ain't saying nothing to her about me. Nothing. Because she didn't even know how we met. So We had discussed this prior to us, me even meeting her, the thought of me and her or whomever. He said to me at the very beginning, what are we going to tell people about how we met? I said, what do you mean? He was like, what are we going to say? Are we going to tell people we met online? Now, I remember back in the day, and when I mean back in the day, I remember when social media first happened, I was a MySpace girl. I mean, Black Planet. And I remember when people would meet online. I mean, there's a whole movie about it with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, You've Got Mail. And when people would write and pen pal to one another, and it was so taboo to have met a person on the internet. And when I met my husband, we met on a dating app. And prior to me meeting him, I have been dating using the dating apps. And I had a few people in my circle, my family, who were like, I just don't like the dating apps. Why can't you meet anybody in person? I feel like the dating apps are weird. Shout out to my niece-in-law, Brittany. And I would go, Brittany, I am the people on the dating app. What are you talking about? Do you think I'm weird? And she would be like, no, I just feel like you can meet somebody in person. I'm like, who am I going to meet in person? I get off the bus, I go downtown, I go to work. Ain't nobody talking to me. And I started, like I explained to her, nobody's talking to me. Like, where am I going? I get off work, I go home, I be a mom. And unless it's the bum at the gas station who is giving me the best compliments ever in the world, because they always do, because they need $1. I look like Beyonce. You want to clean my windows, he wants that $1. But nobody was approaching me. The dating apps was where I was. And so there was a taboo behind the dating app, and it was taboo about meeting people online, because I just remember back then, if someone met someone online and they got done dirty, people would be like, oh, well, you know why? Because she met that man online, or he met that girl online. She's crazy, et cetera, et cetera. But the truth of the matter is, those same people online, they're at the grocery store, they're at the clubs, they're at the gas station, they're at work with you. So when you hear people saying, I don't trust the people online, they're everywhere. And it's me. I'm online. And I would say, well, don't you trust me? I am a little nuts, but in in a lighthearted, loving way. And she would go, no, I don't know. But like I would tell people, or you hear people say, oh, Tinder's for hooking up. No, it is what it is. There are people who meet one another at the gas station and go home and sleep with each other the first day and work out. There are people who meet each other at bars and go home and they're living and married happily for the rest of their lives. There are people who meet and get set up on a blind date and never speak to each other again. It is what you make it. If you use Tinder, and by you, I mean you in general, if you use Tinder or any other dating app just to hook up, that is how you use it. Just because I'm on a dating app doesn't mean people have access to my body. I set the standard. I set the tone. So when I met my husband on Tinder, and when we first met, I was very conscious. I was very direct. I was very driven, and I had a purpose and a goal. I'm getting up off this app, and I'm meeting a man, and I'm meeting a husband. Something's about to happen. I don't know whose son I'm about to be married to, but it's about to crack. And then I met my husband, and I'm married to that guy. And shout out to you, because I love you. But anywho, so you could tell he was self-conscious about that. And I said to him, but why will we lie? I overtalk. I talk way too much. Always have and always will. I'm going to tell on myself. And everybody in my family in my circle knows that I'm on a dating app. So I'm not going to lie. And I told him, if you want to lie about where we met, go for it. I said, but I'm going to come through and fuck it up, because I can't help it. I said, I think it's just wise if we're honest. And he is a very honest person, but you could tell that bothered him. And so I said, if you want to, you can say we met at Starbucks. Do you? Because we met on Tinder January 20th, 2020 at 5 a.m. that morning. And then he messaged me, and I said, when you have time, can we talk? Because I want to hear your voice. He called me. I wanted to make sure he didn't have a high-pitched voice, and he had a very manly voice. And he called me immediately, and we've been inseparable and never stopped talking. And so she looked at us, back to the story at hand. She looked at me and she said, oh, how did you two meet? And I just, with my knee, nudged his. You tell your mama how we met, sir. And he was like, we met. This is the best. He goes, so we met online on a dating app. And she said, oh, Fave's son, a whole real person? You met a whole real person from the internet? And that still tickles me from the day, because she was genuinely taken aback and astonished. And the look on her face was like, this is real. Like, you can tell she was one of those people. She's heard about it. She's heard horror stories. And here her favorite son was meeting real people up off the internet and brought one to her face. Not from a icky standpoint, but it was like, oh, this really happens. And he said, yes, Mom. And she was like, oh my word, you met us okay, all right. And then so I said, well, do you want that story? Do you want the real story? And she goes, I want the real story. So I proceeded, like I always do, to tell a story and tell in the best way that I can. And I said, well, we met that morning, we matched, we messaged, we had a phone conversation. I said, and later that evening, we met at Starbucks and had a conversation. I said, and we've been talking ever since. And she was like, oh, really? I said, and yes, and for context, we met in 2020. And I'm meeting her now of June of 2021. And you could just see the word bubbles above her head. And she's looking at him, she's looking at me. And I'm sure if I weren't there, she probably wanted to say, you've been dating this young lady for a year and a half, and I'm just now meeting her, hearing about her. Like, what is wrong with you? But you know what? That's on him. It is what it is. Here we are, we're meeting. And I didn't know it then, but later that year in November, I would get proposed to. So it is what it is. So, which, I mean, I guess for context, if I'm meeting her, he was pretty serious about it. So we finish our meal, and, we're talking a little bit more. So she's asking me questions like, do you have kids? I say, yes, I have 4 daughters. And she was like, oh my God, you do not look like you have 4 daughters. And, we chatted about that. So as we get up, we walk out, he's walking ahead of us, and she grabs my arm and she embraces me, and she was like, you have 4 daughters and you have this tiny waist. Now, that was 2021. Perimenopause is low-key kicking my butt. I have a bit of a waist now. It's not too bad. I'm still maintaining, but again, so, you think you're big, and then you look back, you're like, I was tiny. I mean, I'm still weight class, but just, things have shifted. Anywho, that's besides the point. But so, so she's like, so how are your daughters? So I immediately, I have a 20-something-year-old, she's in the Air Force. So that made her happy, because my mother-in-law is an Army veteran, and, she's retired. And then, I'm like, oh, this is Ashana, this is Aubrey, this is Ashanti. I'm showing her pictures, etc. So we're just really getting to know one another. We drop her back off at home, and she had brought him fruit, and we get back in the house. She starts saying, do you want to see pictures? So I'm looking at a little bit of pictures, and my mother-in-law loves a good picture now. She got them everywhere. But it was beautiful to see the pictures she had of my husband and his son and his daughter. And, my husband is I have to ask before he shows, whereas maybe that's a man thing, because I very much show him stuff or tell him stuff. He's like, I don't care, and ask for this. But, it was nice to see baby pictures of my husband and see childhood pictures of him and pictures of his children. And you very much walk into her home. It feels like a home. And I was so happy to be there. And I was so happy that, she was, even if in the moment she didn't like me, which I'm not saying she did or didn't, I don't know her thoughts. I feel like she did. She embraced me, and she was very loving. And I came in with a can-do attitude, and I came in with you're going to love me, and I'm going to make you, because I know who I am. I know how much I love your son, and I want you to be my mother-in-law, because I want to marry your son. So I said all that to say, the daughter-in-law coming into the situation, depending on how she feels about her husband, her role, and her in-laws, or the son coming in and he's meeting his in-laws for the first time, it all is based on how your spouse is and how their parents are, and more so how you are and how you want this relationship to go, because our attitudes set the tone. And sometimes people get off on the wrong foot, and you have to understand that. And it is, and I feel like everyone should be given a second chance. I feel like God gives us chance after chance after chance, and you have to give others grace. And I got really, really lucky, because she could have been like, no, I don't like you for my son. But I think because she loves her son so much, I wasn't coming in from a perspective of being, just a whatever you perceive women nowadays to be. I'm not that. I wasn't that. So, and I think because it was like, my son is bringing you to me, you must mean something to him. So she understands her son very well. So you're coming into this already made situation. I understand this is, we ended up going to the movies as well that day. And we were like, okay, let's sit here. She was like, no, you guys, I'll sit here. You lovebirds sit together. That's what she always says. You guys are on honeymoon. You lovebirds sit together. And I think that's very sweet of her. And everybody knows their role. Everyone does. My husband understands his role. I know who I am. I'm a wife. I know who my mother-in-law is. She's his mom, his only mother. That I don't want to be his mom. That's foremost and clear. What's understood doesn't have to be stated. I don't have to march around saying, I'm his wife, I'm his wife, I'm his wife. She knows that. She doesn't have to march around saying, I'm his mom. We know that. How else did he get here? And I think that's the beauty in people who are secure, have confidence, and have a faith in God and understand the relationship that they have with their child. When you have that set relationship with your child, you don't have to fee, fi, fo, fum. This is who I am. I am the mom, or I am the wife. Okay, we know that. Who else is? Like, calm down. It is what it is. So when we talk about the daughter-in-law coming in, and listen, watching my mom with her daughter-in-laws, my mom got lucky because my sister-in-law, Danielle, and my brother, Darren, have been dating, it seems like, all of my life. I don't know anyone else. Same thing with my brother, Felix, and his wife, Latricia. They've been together since I was 8 years old. So you have these people and you have these relationships. And my mother and father, the beauty about them is they love their kids. So they embraced everyone. And they got lucky with Danielle and Latricia because they weren't mean. They weren't ill-spirited. My mother wasn't an ill-spirited monster-in-law. She wasn't that. She's overbearing, of course, as far as verbally with thinking her opinions are right. And I find that is the problem with everyone. Everyone feels they're right, depending on the situation. And maybe you are, and maybe you're not, but you think you're right. And sometimes for people, that's all that matters. But when you have this new energy coming in, this son-in-law and this daughter-in-law, and they really don't understand themselves or understand their place, it could be kind of hard for them. And I think that is why conversations should be had. But so let's look in this. Let's look at the daughter-in-law of it all, and how, if she's coming in and she's not being very loving, or she feels offended at every turn, or, she has a poor relationship with her own parents. If you have a terrible relationship with your own parents and you haven't sought the therapy and the help, you are not going to have good relationships with your in-laws. It's just impossible. And, and these are things that should be looked at and fixed. And for the individual marrying said person who has a poor relationship with their in-laws, you should really take a step back and look at it, because oftentimes we send a representative in. Everybody does. When you're dating someone, you send this representative in, and, for a good 6 months to 8 months, the representative is doing everything. But at some point in time, the real you comes out. And the problem is with that, you and your representative haven't had a conversation about what your representative has been doing. So one day the real you just shows up, and here you are. And you are not like the person that was shown 6-8 months ago. And it's a new person. And everybody's like, who is this? Because last year you didn't act like this, so who are you now? And the person is acting confused. Meanwhile, you knew you weren't who you were when you showed up. So dealing with a difficult daughter-in-law requires establishing healthy boundaries, maintaining open communication, and focusing on your own well-being while respecting your son or daughter's choices. It's also crucial to avoid getting drawn into conflicts and understand the root of the issues to find solutions. Here's a more detailed breakdown of how to navigate a challenging relationship with your daughter or son-in-law. Set boundaries and respect them. Boundaries. Clearly define your own personal boundaries and expectations for how you want to be treated. I think that's for both. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Respect your child's choice, your grown adult child. Acknowledge that your son or daughter has chosen his or her wife or husband, and that they are a part of their life. Communication. Communicate openly and honestly while also being mindful of your own feelings and needs. Practice active listening and empathy. Listen. Try to understand your daughter-in-law or son-in-law's perspective and listen without interrupting. I think we tend to have a problem with that. I tend to do that. I'm in a circle of people who we overtalk one another all day long, and that drives my husband absolutely nuts. So I've been very aware of that, and I do my best to shut up and just listen to understand, not to respond. And that is a hard thing to do, but you can practice it and you can get better at it, because oftentimes when you're talking to somebody and you can just see the wheels in their head spinning because they're like, I ain't listening to fuck shit you got to say. I'm waiting to respond because everything you're saying I feel like is BS. So empathy, put yourself in their shoes and try to understand why they might be behaving the way that they are. Focus on common ground and shared interests. Find shared interests. Look for activities or hobbies that you can both enjoy, creating a positive environment for interaction. Shared experiences. Participate in activities that create positive memories and strengthening your bond. Cooking is the best way to do that. Baking, if that is not your in-laws' jam or your daughter-in-law or son-in-law's thing. Music, maybe go to a concert, go to the movies together. If you both love reality TV, indulge in that. If you have a son-in-law and he enjoys fishing, try doing that with him. Keep communication open and honest. Address issues directly. If there are specific problems, address them directly and calmly while also expressing your feelings and needs. Avoid blame. Focus on the problem, not on assigning blame to your in-law. Seek external support if needed. Therapy. There it is. There's that glorious word again. Therapy. Sometimes therapy is good because you have a mediator. You have someone in this who is a partial. They're there to just help build the bridge back to commonality, back to happiness. Consider seeking an individual or family therapy to help navigate difficult family dynamics. Support groups. Connect with other families facing similar challenges for support guidance, not to sit up and talk shit. This is not, let me go call my cousin who also has an in-law, a daughter-in-law, son-in-law that they can't stand, and now we get to trauma bond over not liking these hoes. Like, that's not what we're doing over here, okay? Don't do that. Remember your grandchildren. This is a key thing. And I think what tends to happen with this son-in-law or daughter-in-law coming in, they're in the me. I'm offended. You hurt me. I'm about to hurt you. And these grandkids are at play. And here's my thing. And I say this to my husband all the time. When you have baby mamas and baby daddies or whatever, particularly bitter baby mamas, you could have a bitter baby daddy. We know them. We won't say their names. When you have a bitter baby mama and she's moving about and doing things because this man don't want her no more. Maybe he didn't even want you when he slept with you. Because, to some men, it's all one color when the lights go out, is what it is. So she's bitter and she's moving in a way and she's turning kids and stuff against you. When you have that dynamic of that bitter individual, it's hard to reason with them because they're hurt and they're bitter and they're not getting over it. And I always tell my husband, I wish bitter baby mamas who have good fathers for their children could experience the person I know. I wish they could experience a bum ass, quote unquote, father for a season in their life where they need the help the most with these kids. When you have a good father and you're being a bitter bitch because it didn't work out between you and that man, and so now you have these kids together or this child together, and you're feeling away because your feelings are still hurt because you had this baby and maybe you shouldn't have, but whatever have you, and you mad because you're not his number one choice no more, but he's showing up for his kids daily. You should experience a bitter baby daddy. You should experience a dude who is going to rock your world for a good season, who won't show up when you need it, who is not financially there for those kids. You need to experience that. Everybody should. Because when you experience that, you then appreciate the man who is the best father for their kids. Now, that is another conversation, a subject alone. And I think that what we don't realize is when you have grandparents who are very active, that is far and in between. Because what I'm noticing now with this new trend of in-laws or grandparents, you have grandparents now who, you figure us Gen Xers and Zillennials and Millennials, we started having babies in the 90s. We were full on 15, 16, 17. I mean, do you remember that movie on Lifetime, 15 and Pregnant, with Kirsten Dunst? And she was 15 years old. It was on Lifetime. And she was 15 years old. And that was kind of like the boom of it all right there, where you had a bunch of 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I was 19 when I had Angelique, having these babies. And their mothers are in their late 30s or in their 40s. So they're like, how in the hell are you bringing on me a whole grandchild and I'm still young and I'm trying to get it popping, if they're not married or, and they're single mothers. So you have a group now of these young grandmothers, and let's just keep it real. These new grandmas, they don't look like the Golden Girls. They're wearing Fashion Nova just like their kids. They're looking younger than their kids sometimes. And, if you're a mom and you have sons, the sons is looking like your mama is fine. What's her number? Or, your new son-in-law is looking at his mother-in-law like, damn, your mama is fine, because everybody is health focused now. Everybody is trying to stay young and cute. They're getting ass transplants. They're getting their faces done. They're getting filler and Botox in. And we all know, and we've seen the sayings or the things on Instagram where it's like, the people from the 80s and 90s look better than the people from the 2000s. It just is what it is. You got us 40-year-olds running around here running circles around these 20-year-olds who look ran through and ran out. So anyways, I said what I said, and it's the truth. But so you have these grandmothers who are young, and they are not interested, not everyone, but they are not interested in being grandmothers. They're not interested in staying home on a Friday, Saturday night, rocking your baby to sleep because you and your spouse want to enjoy each other's company. So I say that to say that if you have an awesome grandparent, embrace that, because I know some grandparents who are not involved at all. I know some grandparents who don't give a damn. And I know some grandparents who are awesome. My mom is an awesome grandmother. Now, I know that for a fact because I've experienced it and I've seen it for, my own eyes. I have my kids have an awesome grandmother within my mom. My daughter Angelique has an awesome grandmother. Her name is Sydney, and she is beautiful. And my husband's mother is amazing. And it's something to be said about a woman who embraces kids that are not biologically hers. She doesn't have to embrace my children. And thank God that she does. But you have some women out here, these daughter-in-laws or these wannabe, I wish I could have been daughter-in-laws, and because they didn't get their way, they now take it out on the grandparents. And it's sickening because you have an in-law, or, you have a grandparent of your child that you have with this man or this woman or whatever you have, and they have great parents, and those parents want to be apart. Shame on you for not letting them be, and shame on you for spewing hate. Shame on you for not nurturing that relationship, because you're so caught up in your feelings And you're so mad that you are going to make this child miss out. So let's start right there. You, because of your feelings, or because you have a spirit of offense, because your ego and you're not secure in who you are, and you have your own issues with your parents, you are stopping this blessing of this grandparent or grandparents being involved with your child. Do you know you're robbing your child of that experience of a grandparent? Like, why would you even do that? Do you know how awesome grandparents are? Because I know what type of grandmama I'm going to be when the time comes, when my girls are secured, settled, married, in happy marriages and having these kids. They're about to be sick of me with these grandkids, because I'm going to do what I was shown. I had awesome grandparents, and my mother's grandparent, my mother's mother, my mother's parents were great grandparents. I didn't get to meet my father's grandparents. My father's parents. I met my grandfather when I was small, but he passed. My grandmother had already passed. I didn't get a chance to meet them. But from what my father says, it would have been on and cracking, because my family, I come from a family that loves family. If you grew up in a family that doesn't really embrace family, I feel bad for you. But you don't have to take that ugliness and vitriol, whatever you two grown adults got cracking, leave that between you two. It shouldn't funnel over into the grandkids. Now, I know that's easier said than done. I get it. But if you love your children and you are selfless, like all mothers and fathers should be, more so mothers, we tend to be more selfless. If the person that you had a baby with, if their parents want to be involved, why would you stop it? If they want to, hey, can I get the kids after school once a week? Or can I, sit for you every other Saturday? Or why wouldn't you take it upon the opportunity? Aren't you tired? Don't you need a break? Yes, I'm packing their bags and I'm sending them over there. Get these kids up the hell out of my face. You want to be involved? You want to buy school clothes? You want to buy school supplies? You want to send money on a birthday? I'm not going to stop none of that, because all that is doing is showing my children somebody else besides their parents love them. Somebody else besides their parents are considering them. And shame on you, that individual who blocks that love. You need to be committed. You need to have your brain refigured out, because you're so caught up with your own feelings and feeling offended because of whatever minutia you and this person have gotten into, that you can't separate it from the kids. It is a hard feat, I get it, but you have to remove yourself from the situation. And then you have to think back, if you grew up and you had good grandparents on both sides, if you got to experience that, why would you stop your children from experiencing that? Or if you've never experienced that, and now it's a chance for your child to experience that and experience goodness and kindness and unconditional love that a grandparent has, why would you interfere? Like, what is wrong with you? So now we have these grandmothers who are young, and they're out here getting it cracking every weekend. And they're like, I'm young and mama got to have a life too. They're not really trying to be bothered with these grandkids, but you see that and you're like, woo, mm-mm. But then you have the grandparents that do want to be involved, and you have conflict with them, and you want to allow your kids to, but you can't get past your own feelings and your own selfishness. Go to therapy. It is the best thing, because you coming in and you being this daughter-in-law who is really an enemy and a villain because of whatever you got shaken and happening in your life, you're mad and you're angry, and your aura is caca brown, and it's not okay. So you come into this situation already made, and maybe you and your mother-in-law or father-in-law got off on the wrong foot. That could be healed and mended, but the question is, do you want to heal and mend it? Do you want to start off again on the great foot? Anything can start over. Sometimes you just got to let things go. You have to let it go. You have to. Now, I've seen it where people have got into physical altercations, and you're like, oh my goodness, this is insane. But that can be fixed too. Sometimes people can laugh at stuff. And if you're one of those people where you're like, I can't get over that, I need an apology or whatever the case may have you, get out of yourself, pray, and with the same grace and mercy you ask God to give you, give to the other person. Move forward so this child or these kids or the person you're married to can have peace. When you are married to a man or when you're married to a woman and you're not getting along with your in-laws, it can wreak havoc on a marriage. It can wreak havoc on a home. So if you're the crazy nutty broad or crazy guy coming into the situation and you have unhealed issues with your family and or something happened and you feel offended, or your mother-in-law has done a number on you, a conversation needs to be had. And if you find that your husband can't really rectify or your wife can't really rectify it, maybe therapy, maybe going to a family pastor, maybe everyone sitting down, airing out grievances. Okay, this is how I feel, this is how they feel, etc., etc. Okay, that was the problem. Now, what are the solutions? Because sometimes people are just nuts. It just is what it is. I know a few nutty ass bitches, and I'm like, your head game must be grand, because how did you get this guy? How did you get this guy? And how is he listening to you and not checking your ass? Because he needs to, because those are his parents. Or you get this girl and she loves her husband so much, but he's awful. And you're like, geez, he must be giving her it swell because he is out of pocket and talking to her parents crazy. And you got these little people in the midst of it, and it's chaos and confusion. And they're like, you don't like Nana and Papa? You don't, and because he's nuts and he needs help in therapy. And I feel like when you have a daughter-in-law or a son-in-law who are filled with chaos and confusion, and they're spreading that nonsense upon everyone else and making their spouses miserable, that's because something's happening deep down inside of them and they don't know how to regulate it and they don't know how to go get help. Or they were truly offended by said in-law, mother, father-in-law, and they don't know how to speak up for themselves. So that husband or wife that is in the midst of that, you now need to advocate for your spouse. You need to advocate for your wife, advocate for your husband, but not from a space of you did this to her, da 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 da, I'm demanding an apology, but from a space of, hey, this took place. What happened? Why did this take place? And then the in-law can say, well, it was this, or wow, I didn't know I offended her or him, or etc. And now let's move forward. But everybody has to want to move forward. We can't fix this if we all don't move forward together. That's what I'm saying. So you got this crazy in-law that comes into the situation, and she's looking at her brother-in-law, sister-in-laws, and everybody in between, or cousins and family members. And, you can't control people. So you got some cousins that might do something unsavory and make a person feel that way. And I remember when I was married to my ex-husband, his siblings, one in particular, was a piece of work. And he had a cousin, and she was a piece of work. And they felt iced out from my ex-husband because he didn't spend time with them. But I had a conversation with him. I said, I don't like them. I don't like the way they make me feel, because I'm not doing anything to them, but I could tell immediately they felt some sense of ownership over my ex-husband. Fast forward now, everybody sees and saw what I see. But at the time, it was like, I'm not going with you over there. And since then, me and the cousin have had a few conversations. She apologized for her behavior because now she was a newly mom and dealing with a mother-in-law who was a piece of work and understood where I was coming from. And people have their hangups, but you have to advocate for your spouse. You have to. But if you're coming in and you're using a representative and you and that representative haven't spoke and you're really a mean bitch, and you just want to take this man and keep him all to yourself, and you want to ice out family members, you're going to have a rude awakening coming, because that doesn't make sense. That doesn't help this family. And what are you trying to do and make that man or that woman miserable? Because you can't, if they have a decent relationship or a good relationship with their parents, why are you trying to interfere with that? Why do you, because you maybe have a terrible relationship with your parents, why are you trying to close them off from the people that love him when they've done nothing to you? They gave you the best gift. They gave you that husband. They gave you that wife. You've got the issues. You should get that figured out. That's a you problem, nobody else's problem. And furthermore, if you're so unhealed, why in the F did you get married? If you know you have issues with your parents, you don't get married. Don't get married until you get some healing done, so you don't go and interrupt that family and that dynamic that was getting along perfectly fine before you showed up with your antics and your nonsense. And truly, somebody should call you out on it. You're a stubborn, mean a-hole, man or woman. And it's not fair and it's not okay. So when we look at those things, and we, as a mother-in-law or father-in-law dealing with the new son or daughter-in-law, you need to avoid getting drawn into conflicts. Practice restraint. Refrain from criticizing or judging their choices, especially in front of your child. Stay calm. Avoid reacting emotionally. Don't get pulled into drama. Remember that relationships take work. Be patient. Build a positive relationship with your in-law. It may take time and effort. Be willing to compromise. Be willing to compromise and find common ground and address conflicts. Focus on the positive. Focus on the positive aspects of your relationships and try to appreciate your in-laws' strengths. Important considerations. Respect your child's autonomy. Remember that your child has a final say in their marriage and their family dynamics. Protect your own well-being. Set boundaries and protect your own emotional well-being by not allowing your in-law to mistreat you. Focus on what you can control. You can't control your in-laws' behavior, but you can control how your own reactions. There are people who are so trauma-driven and ridden, where I've been in situations where I could just tell somebody's trying to cause drama. Like they're trying to trigger me. I hate that word trigger, but it's befitting. They're trying to cause drama. They're trying to pull me in to get a certain reaction out of me. And I have learned to put up boundaries with people. I don't tolerate nonsense because I'm not giving it. I come to everyone I meet and anyone I have a relationship with open arms and an open heart. I want to love on you. I want you to love on me. I want us to have a beautiful interaction. I don't want no shit with not nobody, because it's nothing for me to cut somebody off. I don't want to, but I will. The moment I find that you're trying to bring war and chaos into my life, you're done and you're out. And I'll treat you as if you're invisible. I love ignoring someone. I hate to say that about me, but that is one of my powerful strengths. I will ignore you almost as if you're dead. And I get off on it sometimes. It's not a positive trait, but I do it, and I do it well. Because if I've only been kind and nice to you, and you are mistreating me, and you have put me in a situation that isn't really positive, here's the door. Please don't let it hit you where the good Lord split you. Bye. You're out. And I don't have any in-laws. From a perspective of I'm a mother now, I hope to have a future son-in-law soon. And this young gentleman, oh my goodness, he is everything. I wish I could clone him for all my daughters, but I can't. It is what it is. So I wish the character and the ethics that this young man has, I wish upon all my future son-in-laws to have. And I want this young man coming into our already made family with his future sister-in-laws and stuff, or any future son-in-law coming in. I want to embrace him. I don't want any of that. But if I have a son-in-law coming in and he seems unhealed and he seems like he's got issues with his parents and stuff, I'm going to immediately recognize that because God is good. And I love discerning people and discerning spirits. So I think when you're met with that and you're met with the unhealed person, 9 times out of 10, people aren't forthright with who they are. Like, you know who you are. I know who you are, but you're not being real with me about who you are. I love it when somebody comes in and they tell you exactly who they are off rip, and they are who they say they are, and they move it. Like, if I meet a girl, and if I'm a mom and I have a daughter-in-law and she comes in and she's like, look, I'm a bitch. It is what it is. But we could be cool. And these are the boundaries I said. I could respect that off top. And I think that when people show you who they are, here it is, this mother or father, they have this daughter-in-law or son-in-law, and they're coming in and they're moving away, and you call them out on it. Just off rip, like, hey, I notice when I do X, Y, and Z, you respond this way. Does that bother you? And then they're like, actually, it does, because let me tell you a little bit about me. And you let people talk. You know what? Here's a saying: be interested, not interesting. If you let someone talk long enough, they'll tell you exactly who they are, but you got to let them talk. And then you know who you're dealing with. People's favorite subject is themselves. Let them talk. And then you get a good sense of who you're dealing with. Now, if you're meeting somebody and they're a little bit guarded, and it's the third, fourth, fifth time of meeting them and they're still guarded, call them out on that. This is our 5th time meeting. Why do you still have a wall up, and you know my son or my daughter is trying to be with you? Am I doing something to offend you? And, allow them to kind of put their guards in and say, no, I'm just really nervous. And no, and I know you're very outspoken, or I notice you're this way, and I don't want to offend you, and I'm a little scared. I'm a little timid. I don't have the best relationship with my family. Let me tell you that. And then you delve into that. Be honest with that person. Have you tried to make amends with your family? Have you tried to fix that? Have you gone to therapy? And then if they say no, they haven't, and then you notice your child is very much into this person, you should really coach them into helping that person get help. Because unfortunately or not, that's going to trickle down into this crazy ass person is coming into your family with their unhealed trauma, and they're going to unleash upon everybody at some point in time, whether it be them getting pregnant, whether it be a new baby coming into the situation, they're going to unleash. It's very rare that they don't. And you get to see it, especially if you're in the same neighborhood and you're close, or if you're trying to deal and figure out, or however your son is handling his life, and you and your son talk, and, the daughter-in-law feels a way about him expressing his business to you, or whatever the case may be, or him reaching out for help. That daughter-in-law may feel a way about that. But I think not necessarily as an in-law, mother or father-in-law tucking their tail, but kind of backing up a little bit and reaching out to the in-law, the daughter-in-law or son-in-law, and saying, hey, I'm here to help. I'm here to offer tools. I'm not here to infiltrate your marriage. I'm not here to tear or break your marriage down. I come lovingly. My child loves you. So therefore, I love you. And I want the best for my child. Because some people come in and they don't even understand how they got here. They just know I'm here. I'm married to this person, and probably feel a little bit insecure about the relationship that is had between their wife or their husband with their parents. That's a you problem. But when you're the mother-in-law or the father-in-law, and you can recognize an unhealed person, talk to your child, but move with that. So when they're baiting you into an argument or trying to cause drama, you don't deal. When you notice this happening, remove yourself. And yes, it is easier said than done, but when you practice that, when you practice keeping peace in your home and in your life, nobody can penetrate that. So when you have someone causing drama and doing stuff, you just handle them with a long-handled spoon. Because if there are grandchildren at play or in the midst of this, the main point is keeping that relationship going with these grandkids. And sometimes people are so selfish that they put their own needs in front of their kids' needs, and they don't even see that. So, these mother-in-laws, I'm sorry, these daughter-in-laws, these son-in-laws that are coming in and trying to cause havoc and creep can do more damage than they realize. And, you know, at the end of the day, when everything is said and done, you have to remember at one point in time you were them and you came into a situation. And how would you have liked to have been treated, or how were you treated? And moving from that notion. Because if you can tell this person's batshit crazy, I mean, what is really going on here? So I think upon meeting someone, you set the standard of who you are and how you're going to be treated. And if that person tries it, then they try it. But you take that conversation to your child and you say, hey, son, hey, daughter, I experienced this with your spouse. And that's not going to go this way. So you need to talk to them. Or maybe all of us should get together and have a conversation so we can find a happy medium so we can continue to move forward. Because family is family. And I notice there are people who get mad and get upset and off of something so insignificant and will cut you clean off and take them children away too. That's not okay. You're doing a disservice to your children. So, keep the conversation positive. Be positive. This is the problem. We are the family. Let's confront the problem together. Now, if your daughter-in-law or your son-in-law is just nuts and there's nothing you can do about that, then there's nothing you can do about that. But always remember who you are and where you stand, because this in-law is going to be them to the end of time. And sometimes hurt people just hurt people. But you can create boundaries so that they don't hurt you. So let's just wrap this up in a bow. This part 2 of this whole in-law conversation. I found some cute, funny quotes for daughter-in-laws and for son-in-law. So this one says, daughter-in-law, there are many great people in our family, but you are special because you volunteered. And if that ain't the truth, she came into our family and made in-laws sound way too formal. Oh, that one's sweet. Thanks for being my daughter-in-law. If I had a different daughter-in-law, I would punch her in the face and go find you. Love, Mom and Dad. That's cute. To my daughter-in-law, you mean way too much for me to call you daughter-in-law. You are a bonus daughter. You are a friend. You are a family we gained along the way. You are a gift to all these who know you. Beautiful inside and out. For all the prayers I've ever prayed, you are truly the answer. For you love the man who is my son. For that, I thank you so much. That is really sweet. And I think most mothers and most fathers feel that way about their child and want someone who's coming in, especially if they have a son. They want to gain a daughter, not lose a son. So I found some son-in-law quotes that I thought were really funny. And it said, being a father-in-law is like being a referee, except everyone is yelling at you even when you do your job right. I love my son-in-law like a son, the son I never wanted, but I love him anyway. My son-in-law and I have a great relationship. We both love my daughter and complaining about her. That's cute, because what? The daughter-in-law, marrying the daughter, the son-in-law. I think about I think about my husband all the time and him coming into my crazy, chaotic family. And when I mean crazy, I mean crazy with love, with my brothers and my mom. And he's just like, he's the little brother because everybody's older than him, but it's just like, it's so nice to have him here. And I know my mother loves him. Okay, here's another quote for the son-in-law. My daughter says I need to treat her husband like a son. I told her I'd start with grounding him for staying out too late. That's cute. So here's another one. I'm not sure who's more scared of me, my daughter or her husband. Either way, I win. That's horrible. But I used to think I knew everything. Then my daughter got married, and now I realize I knew nothing about how to deal with the son-in-law. That's pretty funny. What do you call a son-in-law who's always in trouble? A lawbreaker. Like that dad joke. My son-in-law is so good at fixing things. He's a real handyman. That one's not funny. But, it is what it is. So I truly hope, the whomever's listening to this, if you are a son-in-law or a daughter-in-law, and maybe you've had some, unsavory interactions with your in-laws, and not, this is my thought. Nothing is beyond repair. Anything can be repaired, especially relationships, especially if you are in love with your wife, if you're in love with your husband. You should value your in-laws because they raised the person you're married to. Nothing is beyond repair. I think a conversation should be had if people have stepped on others' toes, or, signals got crossed and communication was broken down. Repair it. Have a conversation. Go in with genuinely wanting to change, genuinely wanting to fix what went wrong. Even if you are a nutty person, if you're crazy. I think at times we lay in bed at the end of the night and we know who we are. We know how we've offended someone. We know how we've been offended. And at the core of things, especially if there's a child in the midst of all this, or children, you should want to repair that relationship if you truly love your spouse. But, admit your wrongs, apologize sincerely. And the best apology is changed actions and behavior. And that if you've been the one offending, change that. If you felt offended, you know what? Say how you felt, allow them to apologize, and then with active changed behavior, you all can come to a happy medium. But more than that, give everyone the grace you'd love someone to give you. Everybody's not perfect. You're not perfect. And everybody isn't right, but everybody feels they're right. So this can all be fixed and changed. And if you're a nutty ass person, you can go get help for that. If you have struggle with relationships with your family, go get help. You and your parents go to therapy. You have to remember, our parents are humans too. They didn't just come on this earth and God was like, okay, boom, you know everything. And when they create mistakes, they're not doing it because they know what to do and how to do it. Some people, they're hurt too. So give your parents that grace to fix that relationship. And you have to understand they are human and they are doing the best they know how. Everybody don't know everything. And sometimes we think we're doing the right thing when we are not doing the right thing. But you have to give people a chance to change. And you're raising your own kids. And one day, your kids are going to grow up and they're going to look at you and realize, oh, my mom is not my Messiah. My parents are not superheroes. I remember when I found out, oh shit, my parents are human. They're not a superhero. They don't know everything. And they're going to start holding you to a level, and they're going to start questioning you, and they're going to want apologies. So you better be very careful how you move with your parents and understand that they're doing the best they know how. We all are. So with that, I bid you all adieu. And I can't wait to talk to you guys again so we can wrap this thing up and figure out ways and how to come together. Have a great weekend, and I love you all. Bye.